of course, hosts and programs Noir City, the world's largest noir retrospective, which takes place in San Francisco, his hometown, every year, and now has satellite festivals in 6 other U.S. cities. As the founder and president of the Film Noir Foundation, he has been instrumental in rescuing and preserving America's noir tradition, which has included restoring such prints as Try and Get Me, The Prowler, Too Late for Tears, and Woman on the Run, amongst many, many others. He is also the Edgar-nominated and Shamus Award-winning author of 2 great works of fiction and several works of film studies. And he may be best known to you as the host of TCM's newest franchise, Noir Alley, which is every Sunday at 10 a.m., making him one of the few people who's actually used to noir this early in the morning. So glad to see you here. Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Mueller.
Okay, good morning. Yes.
9 a.m.
And a massive audience for this. I'm just stunned and so incredibly pleased. So how many of you people that are here because, and don't be embarrassed, you have not seen this film before? Okay, that is pretty good. I think I see like 3 hands. I don't know. Okay, so I guess what do I have to introduce the film for? Because it's a testament to how great this is that you're all here at 9 o'clock in the morning and you've all seen it already. Okay. But I'm going to give you a little bit of background, things that I think are particularly interesting about this film and why it is so significant. Now, as Shannon said in his introduction, I am from San Francisco, and so the San Francisco elements of this film are particularly important to me, especially the author of the original novel upon which this is based, Dashiell Hammett. If you saw me introduce the film on Noir Alley, on the inaugural episode of Noir Alley, I didn't make a big deal about it, but everybody on the set was like, I can't believe it, we hired this guy because he was a noir expert and he's mispronouncing the author's name. Because I was insistent upon calling him Dashiell Hammett, which is actually the correct pronunciation of his name, which has been bastardized over the years by everybody. You know, it's French, the French Huguenots, and it's like Dashiell, Samuel Dashiell Hammett. So people hate it when I point this out, because everybody who's named their kid after him is like, sorry, but it's actually Dashiell. So, hi Dashiell, how are you? You know. So anyway, he was an actual Pinkerton detective, and he worked for the agency various places around the country. He's from Baltimore, Maryland originally. Served in World War I and contracted tuberculosis. Worked for the Pinkertons when he was in San Francisco. Worked on several very interesting cases there. I mean, this was the real thing. Hammett was the real deal. Although he sort of got out of tradecraft because his frail health was not the best for following people and surveillance work and chasing people down. And he actually did carry with him for his whole life a little indentation in the back of his head where somebody had hit him with a brick at one point when his surveillance was not too good that day. And anyway, so he decided to pursue more sedentary paths and started to write about this kind of thing because no one else was really doing it realistically. And that is really what Hammett brought to modern crime fiction, the ability to if you've read his short stories with the Continental Op, those are all very, very accurate, authentic works of detection, the way these guys actually operated. But when he started to realize that this was how he was going to have to make money for the rest of his life and actually take care of his wife and 2 daughters, he looked to the movies. And the Maltese Falcon was written specifically to sell to Hollywood. When he started to put this together, the idea was he wanted to write a stream of consciousness detective story. Much like, you know, he was a very, very well-read, very literate man. And when he read James Joyce's Ulysses, he said, I'm going to write a detective story like this. And we can all thank God that he didn't follow through. But what he did do is someone convinced him along the line that the thing to do was to write a very dispassionate narrative with what became known. Is that me? Thank you. Whoever that was, you were quick. That was good. Got rid of that phone. He wrote a very dispassionate narrative with what became known as camera eye technique. He is very observant. He observes everything, and this was so easily translatable to film that Hollywood jumped right on it and promptly screwed it up twice. So the first Maltese Falcon, made in 1931, Deadly is the female, didn't really portray Sam Spade accurately at all. Ricardo Cortez played the character in silk polka dot pajamas, and you know, he was kind of a Lothario, very common in movies at that time. The rest of the cast is pretty good, but Ricardo Cortez is nobody's idea of Sam Spade. And then the next time Warner Brothers made the picture, they actually changed things around so that the Bridget O'Shaughnessy character was sort of the protagonist of the film, and Bette Davis played her in Satan Met a Lady. And again, they didn't really get Sam Spade. So it was up to John Huston for his feature film debut as a director. And no one was better at adapting great works of literature to the screen than John Huston. Absolutely the best at it. I think he was probably the most literate film director ever to work in Hollywood. And he said, I'm the guy that's going to adapt this. And the screenplay is so faithful to the novel. It's kind of incredible. I mean, the apocryphal story is that he handed it to Meta Carpenter, who I believe actually did this. If you Hollywood fans know who Meta Carpenter was, she was also William Faulkner's mistress in Hollywood, more importantly. And she just formatted the novel, really, as a screenplay. And they were off to the races. And I have taught film classes and all this stuff, studied the auteur theory and everything, and I will tell you that great movies break down to 4 words in the end. It's good script, well acted. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And this is the shining example of it, because the script is so incredibly tight, and John Huston put together the best cast imaginable to bring this to life. Some people argue, I've had film noir fans argue, that they don't particularly like Mary Astor in this movie, and I tell them, you are idiots, because Mary Astor is fantastic in this film. And she did consider this to be like one of her crowning achievements. She loved making this movie, and as I'm sure you know, it must have been a delight to see this film when it first came out, because it wasn't too long before this that Mary Astor was all over the front pages of the papers in this country for her very scandalous, the trial to get custody of her child, and her diaries came out, and she ended up having a very, very active sex life that became known to most of America. And yes, and John Huston said, well, now that'll just work fine for this character. And I do believe that John Huston and Mary Astor enjoyed making this film together. Look at me, I could go on all day about this. It's 9 o'clock, you guys want to watch other movies, but I have to say, Sidney Greenstreet and Peter Lorre, come on, the first time together in a movie. They would do this 8 more times after this, and if Sidney Greenstreet doesn't make the most formidable debut in movie history in this movie, I don't know. I mean, he is absolutely spectacular. And I will just leave you with this. I don't think Humphrey Bogart gets enough credit for being so essential to the development of what we now call film noir, because it's his attitude that really was the revolutionary thing in this movie. And that sense of, you can't put one over on me, and that I've seen it all, and I'm very cynical, but I do have my own personal code of ethics. This is the actor who I think embodied that at this time in American culture more than anybody else. And Mary Astor had this beautiful comment when she said, acting with Humphrey Bogart made you very, very conscious of what you were doing, because he always looked at you like you were completely naked. And if you watch the film, I mean, you can see that that is the essence of Bogart's performance, is the way he looks at people. And it's an essential part of what Bogart did on screen. It's not acting, it's reacting. And he is the best at it. So this, you're seeing like the explosion of Humphrey Bogart in American culture with this movie. So you 4 people who haven't seen it before, boy, this is your lucky day. Enjoy the Maltese Falcon.